There we go. I didn't put enough time, get enough place to put my guitar. Anyway, ahoy hoy, I'm Planarwalk, and welcome to PlanarTalk episode 6 with Faraday Speaks. Let me just unmute him so that he can introduce himself, and I should also switch to the... There we go, everyone can see everyone. So how's it going?
Hey man, how are you? It's good to be here.
I'm good. So, I do have a few questions that I'll ask you. It's more of a casual discussion rather than an interview, because interviews you've got to sort of prepare for them. I do not like preparing for anything, so, you know.
Oh yeah, no worry. I'm pretty good at just going off the fly, so we can just talk about whatever.
Yeah. So, I'm probably going to start with one of the sort of first things that came to mind, and that, because when I watched your first video it's gotten over 400,000 views, hasn't it?
Yeah. I think it's just over 400,000.
Yeah. So, one of the things that sort of stood out to me was when you said that one of the things that got you into the alt-right, because I should probably give a bit of context for my viewers. So you used to be part of the alt-right.
Yeah, I would have considered myself alt-light, not fully alt-right, but it's all the same circles at the end of the day. It's all overlapping circles of influence and different teams, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. So with that context out of the way, one of the people that you cited that got you into the alt-right was, when you started to say about it, you said a Canadian person, right?
Yep, Stefan Molyneux. Yeah, I found Stefan Molyneux during a bout of depression in my life, and he just totally reeled me in into his personality, into his ideas, and I can talk more about that if you'd like. But yeah, that's really how it started.
Well, when you said that it was someone that was Canadian, my first thought was, well, it's definitely going to be Jordan Peterson. Because that's like the only Canadian guy that I know that's...
This was actually before the days of Jordan Peterson. Yeah. I remember when Jordan came on the scene.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson, I'm not a big fan of him, but I think that he is probably more tolerable than Molyneux, at least to me, because when it comes to Molyneux, and I like the way that Dusty, the name that Dusty gives him, Stephen Mulenuts.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good name. But there's so many times when I say so many times, I just mean once. So there was one time when I listened to him, and I have no idea what the fuck he was trying to say.
What was the topic on? Do you know? Was he ranting about women like usual?
He was ranting about why he left the left, or why he's no longer a liberal, or something like that, or why he doesn't like socialism.
Oh, Molyneux. Yeah. I mean, he got involved with Ayn Rand in I think it was high school or college, so it's hardly to say you left the left. Yeah, Ayn Rand is it's pretty far right in terms of at least libertarianism and all that. So yeah, he's been involved with that pretty much his whole life.
Yeah, I've actually developed I've actually developed something, and because I'm guessing that you've heard of Dave Rubin, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So I've developed something like a scale, and it's how liberal are you, right? And I actually used this in the last in the last Planet Talk that I had, and I asked how liberal the Liberal Party of Australia is, right?
Okay.
And 10 is complete, Soviet Russia. A 6 would be the Labour government of New Zealand. A 4 would be the Democratic Party of America. A 2 would be Dave Rubin, and a 0 would be Nazi Germany. And yeah, he said that the Liberal government of Australia is about a 3 on that scale.
Yeah. Yeah, Dave, obviously he's not as far right as like the fascists, and even Ben is a little bit more further to the right than he is, but he's in this like really weird spot where they're calling themselves classical liberals. They're trying to say they're libertarians. I don't think Dave has an ideology, to be honest with you. I think Dave just like he has a coin slot in the back of his head, and that's all he's got.
I was about to say that Dave seems like the sort of person where the money, he'll look at where the money is coming from, and money's coming from the right. All right, I'm right, but I'm still one of those classical liberals. Gotta keep to my ideology. If I think that if someone's ideology changes, then if someone's ideology changes, they should own that shit, rather than say, "Oh, I'm still liberal," like Dave is, like what that seems like Dave is trying to do.
Yeah, well, he always does this. Like when I saw a little interview he did with Jordan Peterson and Ben. He had both of them on his show, and they were sitting there talking about the left, and then they like preface her like, "Oh, but not you, Dave." And Dave's like, "Yeah, I really like that you preface that. I'm on the left still." It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, because you are for gay marriage? Like I don't particularly know if that's not good enough to call yourself a leftist.
I mean, it could be that he's just playing into those identity politics that he hates so much.
Well, he did used to use his identity a lot as a crutch, like to say that this is why I'm a liberal, because I'm gay and I'm married. And it's like, oh, nice identity politics there, Dave. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Charisma in the chat says classical liberal is the same as basically conservatives who don't want to admit they're conservative.
Yeah, pretty much. Classical liberal is a real thing, but it's just not being used honestly by people like Dave or people like Sargon.
Yeah, Sargon is one of them ones which I used to have a bit of respect for him, right? Way back in when he was talking about the Anita Sarkeesian stuff, Do you remember?
Yeah. You were into the Gamergate shit for a little while.
I didn't really keep up with the whole Gamergate shit, but I do remember that Anita Sarkeesian was basically a Suju, and a lot of people are being considered Sujus now.
Oh yeah. I like that term there. Suju. Yeah. I don't know. He pretty much got his bones harassing the fuck out of Anita. And like looking back, like at the time I was like, oh well yeah, she's ruining video games and this is horrible. And like looking back, I'm like, no, like they really fucking like tried to ruin her life for like absolutely no reason at all. And like they like played like conspiracy theory videos of her saying she's not a gamer, even though they're like just obviously taking things out of context. And it was just really it was really nasty looking back.
Yeah. I didn't keep up much with that, but all I remember is that back then I was on the side of I would have been on the side of Sargon, but now it's one of them things where Sargon, I mean, what kind of person goes from being a YouTuber to being like saying that they're on the, didn't he used to say that he was on the left or something?
Yeah, he said he was a liberal. I mean, that's why he still calls himself a classical liberal, right?
Yeah. And so what kind of person goes from being a liberal to being an alt-right, well, not really an alt-right, but a conservative politician,
I mean, I went from being a liberal or a centrist liberal to being pretty much alt-right. I mean, it can happen to anybody, but in the case of Sargon, I think Sargon reminds me of Trump. He's very advantageous. He's very much like what benefits me today. That's the vibe I get off of him.
Yeah. I actually do remember when I heard about some of the things that Sargon supported, like he supported 9/11 conspiracy theories. And back then I was actually more of one of these people which would go, yeah, 9/11 was definitely an inside job. But these days, and fun fact, Sargon being into the 9/11 conspiracy theory was what actually made me question the 9/11 conspiracy theory.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think we were all like, how old are you, or roughly like your early 20s?
Yeah, I'm 22.
22. Okay, I'm 26. So I'm pretty sure that all of us got into conspiracy theories when we were in high school. And pretty much all of us got into 9/11 conspiracies because we spent too much time on the internet. Like we all probably watched Zeitgeist or Loose Change or whatever the fuck. So I don't think that's weird that like for young people to get involved in conspiracy theories. It is weird though when you see grown men still into conspiracy theories. Like that's a little unsettling, but
yeah,
I don't know if Sargon still believes that 9/11 was an inside job. I'd imagine he'd say he doesn't, but yeah.
Last I heard of it, I think he said something like, "I still don't think that 2 planes can fell 3 buildings," or something like that.
It's dumb shit. Like, don't you think if they did the conspiracy, they would have thought about that? They wouldn't have just chartered a 3rd plane, like
yeah.
I don't. Yeah.
Like, it's one of them things where to start off with, I was thinking, oh yeah, and I often hear people, they come into the chat sometimes and say, oh, it's 9/11 was an inside job, and it's like, well, what proof do you have? And if someone brings up Building 7, you can say, well, actually, that one, if you actually look into it, that one actually can be felled by just fire, because you got the fire brigade were attending to the main 2 buildings and really didn't have time to worry about the 3rd building that was going to collapse, because that one would have been mostly evacuated.
Yeah, once you look into it, it's like pretty reasonable, but I don't know. People like conspiracy theories. It's like it's a big thing on the right wing right now with the alt-right. Like a lot of what their beliefs are end up just being conspiracy theories. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about cultural Marxism all the time. It's literally a Nazi conspiracy theory. Like literally a Nazi conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I haven't heard much about. Well, all I've heard about cultural Marxism is that your liberal professors want to indoctrinate you with cultural Marxism to push their postmodern neo-Marxist agenda.
I can't. Oh God, I can't. But it's like. But what they do is like you believe it because like you already think the world's fucked up, right? Like a lot of people that are on the alt-right, like they already believe that the world's fucked up, and the world is fucked up in a lot of ways, right? But they think the world's against them, and they see themselves as being part of this like underground movement to fight back against whoever it is that's against them. And then whenever you have like Jordan Peterson come in and say, well, it's just it's the postmodern neo-Marxists, and they're subverting your schools to turn your kids gay. And it's like, well, fuck, I guess that's it. Thanks, Jordan. You nailed them down for me. Before I thought it was the reptiles, but now I know it's just a neo-Marxist. Thanks, Jordan. It's like, and young people fall into this, like older people fall into this, but it's usually people that like they have a conspiratorial mindset. Like, yeah.
When I first heard. I actually remember it was something like last year, no, not last year, but the year before. Someone said to me, I said how I put a reference back to one of my older videos in a video of mine, and this person said, "Oh, that's so postmodern of you," and I was thinking, wait, are you trying to insult me? Because I didn't really know what postmodern meant, and so I was thinking, is postmodern good or bad? Is this guy trying to say that I was doing something good or doing something bad? And he said, "Oh yeah, it's something good. It's a good thing." And then later I heard more of it from Jordan Peterson going on about the postmodernists, the evil postmodernists. And so, yeah, last year I decided to actually talk to a postmodernist who says that Jordan doesn't know what the fuck he's on about.
No. I mean, I'm sure Jordan has some critiques of postmodernism. Postmodernism can get out of control. Who was it? Not Derrida. Foucault had some fucking goofy ideas about kids, some fucked up ideas about kids, from what I understand. It can get out of control, but Jordan acts like it's like everyone's a postmodernist, as in that's like an ideology they identify with, and then that's like the ruling identity that they go through their life with, right? And it's like, no, it's like there's critiques that postmodernism gave us that are positive. The reason we have things like, well, I guess Jordan, this would be part of the conspiracy, but the reason we have things like feminism or critiquing like a class structure or racial structure, racial hierarchies, that's all postmodernism. It's saying, what is the way of the world? What's the way that we always thought the world works? And how can we deconstruct that and look at it in a different way? It's just criticizing. That's all postmodernism is. It's criticizing.
And yeah, I actually agree. If you have, it's basically taking something that was always the way that it was, and saying, well, what if we do it differently? And you can apply this to all sorts of things, like because modernism is the idea that you progress at a steady rate, right? But when it comes to progression, especially when it comes to things like computers, we there's a limit that you can get to. Like, we're getting up to the end of Moore's law, which says that computer power will double every 2 years, and that's about to end.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I got to address a super chat by Brian Shannon, who says it's Planarwalk, but he just sits there.
So if Moore's law is slowing down, does that mean I don't have to upgrade my computer every 6 months?
I'd hope so, but I don't think that will apply to the companies that want to put more bloatware on your computer.
Damn it. Okay.
Yeah, but we do have a few ideas of how to go about it, because we're thinking about putting getting quantum computers.
I heard that's a meme, though. I heard I was talking to a lot of the quantum computer stuff is a bit of a meme. Like, it's only going to be for specific use cases.
Yeah.
They're also doing graphite now. That looks really interesting. Because they can do it. They can. I think it's they can make it smaller when they use graphite over silicon. So I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer. I almost went to school for that. That's actually where my name comes from. It comes from Michael Faraday. So.
Okay. Because I thought maybe your last name was.
I learned enough to seem like I knew what know what I'm talking about.
That's what a lot of people do, though. Like, if you talk to people like some flat earthers, for example, like Anthony Riley, they kind of know what they are talking about, but they really don't.
Yeah, it's like they read the introductory textbook to something, and then that was it. And then they then use that information to create a weird conspiracy worldview ideology thing. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I actually just looked in the chat, and I noticed that 3 people that were mods spoke one after another. And so MCToon said, I know plenty about quantum computers. Christmas then said, I know nothing about quantum computers. And then MCToon said, quantum computers are extremely special purpose. Brian Shannon said graphene, not graphite.
Oh, graphene. Yep, graphene, yeah. That's it.
Yeah. I definitely need to look more into this so that I know what hardware to buy.
Yeah. Well, graphene, we're a little bit away from that, I believe. So.
Yeah.
So how have things been in New Zealand? I spoke with some Kiwis. I have a Discord server. You're on the Discord server,
yeah.
And there's actually a lot of Kiwis over there, New Zealanders, and I've been hearing that your suicide hotlines or your mental health hotlines are like overloaded right now. Like it's really like affecting a lot of people. Like, have you gotten that sense on the ground or?
Well, yeah, I kind of I can see where that might be coming from because I actually know some people that have gone through recent things where their mental health definitely wasn't in the best state. So yeah, I can definitely see where they might be coming from, or where you might be coming from with that. So, although I don't know enough people to make a judgment of what's going on about the state of mental health over here, but I suppose I don't know what the reasoning is for it because you could point to something like the Christchurch shootings and say, oh, that's why the hotlines are overloaded, but I don't know if that would have affected enough people for them to make a whole lot of people suicidal and in kind of a national way. I think it would be more of maybe our mental health services aren't quite up to scratch, or maybe what I don't know what the suicide rate here is, but I heard that it was pretty high recently.
Oh.
But if the hotlines are overloaded, that could mean that we're actually making progress on getting people to actually talk with people if they have depression, which how Sweden apparently has the highest rape rate in the world.
Oh yeah. I know this. Go ahead, Doug.
And then and you got people like Ben Shapiro saying, "Look, therefore Sweden isn't a good place to live. Take that, you liberal cultural Marxist." And it's like, well, what if it's not actually the place with the highest rape rate in the world? It's just they encourage people to talk more about to report rapes more.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I don't think I'd do a decent Ben Shapiro impression. You got to think fast on your feet.
Yeah, well, you have to have the script ready for Ben because he talks so fast that it's hard to improvise as you go along. With Jordan, you can just kind of pontificate about, like if you think about like the logos and like the way of the solar system, and when the planets align, that's with your chakra. And when your chakras align, you're aligned. And when you're aligned, your house is aligned. And when your house is aligned, your community is aligned. And then the world's aligned, and then you win.
But here's the thing. Do you really believe that? I want to see how good your Jordan Peterson is.
Well, that depends on what you mean by believe.
Because doesn't he... I remember... Have you heard of Genetically Modified Skeptic?
No.
Okay. He's a good YouTuber. You should check him out. But anyway, he talked about Jordan Peterson's most pseudo-scientific claim ever, right? And
okay.
He was talking about how the ancient people knew what DNA was because they had double helix drawings of snakes. And And when he was pressed on this, he said, he said something. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he basically backed right up on that claim and said, "Well, I don't necessarily believe it," or something to that effect. I was just entertaining the idea. I was just asking questions, jacking off. Something along those lines.
Once again, more conspiracy theory type, cop-outs, right? Oh, I'm just asking questions. Yeah, he had like a big, did you see the debate he did with Sam Harris about truth?
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Jordan Peterson, ironically, like truth, one of those subjective words that you can think of. The word actually kind of is talking about objectivity, right? Truth. And Jordan Peterson, the man that goes on and on about postmodernism, has the most postmodern interpretation of truth.
Yeah.
It's like, he says that like truth is, it's not about what's objective, it's about what's useful. I'm probably bastardizing his definition, but that's because his definition doesn't make sense. And even Sam was sitting there for like an hour and a half, like they couldn't get past the point because it didn't make sense. And so he was saying to Sam, he's like, just because you build the atomic bomb and there's a scientific method to building the atomic bomb doesn't mean you should build the atomic bomb. So that means the atomic bomb's not true. And I'm like, okay, dude. Like, can you just pick a different word for what you're talking about? Like,
yeah, it's like nunny.
Yeah. So it's very ironic coming from Jordan.
Like, when I talk about truth, usually what I mean when I talk about truth is what I believe to be objectively factual, right? So, it's like if someone makes a claim that they have magic powers, all right, that may not, to me, it may not necessarily be true, but if they've got some mental disorder and they actually believe that they've got magic powers, to them it could be true. And it's just a combination of what's factually true, or what's a fact, and what we actually know or think. So.
Yeah, that's good to point out, because like a lot of people, and this is the problem the alt-right has, right? Or like people like that think in that way in general, is they talk about facts and logic a lot, right?
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is like that's not how this works. Like, we don't know everything objectively. We don't know objective reality. So yeah, when we say truth, it's just the preface that you made is perfect. Like, it's as true as we know, right? It's as true as our perception allows us. Of course, it could be. It is. There's a lot of subjectivity to it. But, they'll go in and they'll say, no, this is objectively true. The races are just genetically different. It's like, dude, that's not how science works. Like, in science, like when you talk to a scientist, they come off very insecure. And that's the reason is it's like, well, maybe, the data shows that it could be this way under this circumstance at this time. And then like Ben Shapiro comes in and says, no, the data says that trans people are illegitimate. Look at the suicide rates. And this is objective truth. Facts and logic, people. Facts and logic. It's like, that's not how this works. Like,
and he always goes on about facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
Although I'm pretty sure there's a few times when you can, when you could probably have a look at that. And one person just said, I enjoy your stuff. It's so good to see folks who rely on facts, science, and reason.
But Ben's feelings don't care about the facts, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. But one thing I was going to point out is I find that a lot of people on the alt-right, they look at something and go, well, you see, African Americans have lower IQ than lower IQ than the whiteys, so therefore they must be genetically different to have lower IQ. And it's like, well, have you actually done what? Because one of the things that I can say that Jordan Peterson did well is when it comes to that Kathy Newman debate, everyone can agree that Jordan Peterson basically won on that, or so to speak, right?
He did win that debate, in my opinion. Yeah.
And he said, he did say some stuff like, you've got to do a breakdown of the meta-analysis. I can't remember what he said, meta-analysis or something like that of the. But yeah, and it's weird how. I suppose it's not weird, but it's just strange how people that say, "Oh, facts and logic," don't actually do a breakdown of the things on race and break it down by, or what's the pay, IQ and race, and don't break it down by, or how much are these people getting paid? Can they afford decent education? And it's because I can agree that African Americans probably do have lower IQ than white people, but I don't think it's because they're African American. I think that it's because they're just poor.
Yeah, that's all it is. If you were to go where I came from, drive up to West Virginia, drive out into the country, drive all the way back into the sticks. I'm sure the average IQ back there is, pretty comparable to someone that grew up in, a poor area of Detroit, or someone that grew up in, like any poverty-stricken area. It's like, this is how this works. Like, this is why geneticists aren't going around, talking like race realists, because we have sociologists that have studied this over a long period of time and they understand how this works. But the alt-right doesn't care about that because they like essentialist arguments because then it makes it easier for them to prop up their hierarchies. If the world doesn't run on this like deterministic way, then you kind of have to look at the hierarchies and say, well, then why are they the way they are? Why are the people in charge?
Because
is it because they're better than everybody else? Yeah, lobsters. Did you see the GQ debate with Jordan Peterson? I don't mean to go on and on about all these like IDW types, but the GQ debate with what is her name? She's a very famous feminist, and she owned him. It was like so good. I even saw that debate when I was on the right, and I was a Jordan Peterson fanboy. And even then, I was like, no, like she mopped the floor with him.
Yeah, like there's so many times when sometimes I'll watch something and be like, this person won. Like when it comes to the Kathy Newman thing, I will agree that even though I'm not a big fan of Jordan Peterson, I'll agree that Jordan Peterson basically owned her, and it's because she was being far too aggressive, and she was
being aggressive. She was making like ridiculous claims, like without asking questions.
Yeah. And then you've got, the things like the Matt Dillahunty talk, which wasn't even supposed to be a debate, but Jordan Peterson was far too aggressive in that thing, because I think what Matt Dillahunty brought up was he asked Jordan Peterson, "Do you believe in God?" And so Jordan Peterson, well, his response, he sort of dodged and dipped around the point. He did make a point that Matt Dillahunty said, well, I'd actually agree with you on that when Jordan Peterson said, you shouldn't take the Bible so literally.
Jordan Peterson said that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine if he wants to take that approach. You can look at the Bible that way, right? And if you look at the Bible that way, there is a lot of wisdom that you can pull out of it. But the problem, I just have beef with Jordan. Like he doesn't just act honestly. He knows that the Bible was written pretty literally for the most part. Like it's being dishonest to say that. Yeah, I don't know.
I honestly prefer Greek mythology to the Bible, because Greek mythology is way cooler than the Bible. The Bible is more or less a set of instructions, and it doesn't really have the same kind of epicness to it. It has a few battles. It's like, oh, throw in a couple of invasions, it'll be cool. It's like, well,
Old Testament's got some stuff in it. It's got some action scenes in the Old Testament.
Yeah, but I just think that it's a bit too basic. It doesn't really have a good story. Whereas Greek mythology, and people are bringing up Norse mythology, which is pretty cool. It's so cool that Marvel decided we're gonna take Norse mythology and make movies out of it.
Well, yeah, but that's what's cool. I think that's what resonates with like Greek and Norse mythology with us nowadays, especially people in our generation, because it's like they're basically superheroes, right? Like that's like where the superhero model came from, So I can agree with that totally.
Yeah, because even I've got a Bible here, right? And it's difficult to read. I like books with a story, and I've tried reading the Bible before, but especially the first chapter, Genesis, it's it tries to explain things, but it tries to explain where the rainbow came from, and it's not what conservatives would have you believe. It wasn't the gays farting, but it was it was God.
Yeah, my only thing with reading the Bible is it's very difficult to read. It's very dry. It's a lot of begots and a lot, But I was very much shit too when I was like going through the alt-right. I was like, it was so weird because I grew up, watching like TJ on YouTube back in the early days of YouTube.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if you know, and like I watched all the atheist stuff. I watched like the Richard Dawkins shit on YouTube back before there were pipelines leading you to radical movement. And so I was pretty well inoculated to religion. That, and I had a religious family, and so I was pretty well inoculated to that stuff. But when I was going through the alt-right, I found myself, especially once I got to like the TradCon phase, the traditional conservative phase of things, I was listening to Jordan Peterson a lot. I very much found myself like trying to identify with Christianity, trying to use that to like form an algorithm to like run my life on, so I didn't have to think anymore. Yeah, so that was a big part of it for me too. When I was over on that side, was trying to find like what are the roots of Western civilization and what's a way to structure my life.
It's actually very interesting that you said that, like, you're trying to form an algorithm, a way to live your life so you didn't have to think anymore.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of sounds like what it might be with a lot of these people that go down the alt-right pipeline. They just don't want to think anymore because thinking is difficult. It's much easier to watch YouTube videos and form your ideology based on that. You see that with flat earthers all the time. They watch a few YouTube videos and they're like, okay, yep, that's the way that it is, rather than going out and doing their own research.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's about like, you know, it does. Like traditional society does give you an algorithm. In the society that we live in now, it's not figured out. It is new. It's an experiment, right? Feminism is an experiment. You know, equal rights amongst the races is an experiment. When you go to traditionalism, it's already figured out. It was figured out for thousands of years and perfected over thousands of years. It's very easy to go back into like a patriarchal society and just exist that way. It takes a lot less thought. It takes a lot less planning. It's just easier. And I think that that's why, like, for people that were in my situation, you know, depressed, struggling in life, not getting ahead, it's like, well, okay, how can I it's not even about not wanting to think so much as it is, how can I just like not have to deal with the day-to-day just onslaught of bullshit of like failing and trying and failing and trying. Is there an easier way to do this? And then the alt-right comes in, or right, you know, these like reactionary right-wingers come in and say, yep, we figured it out. It's written here in this ancient text, scrolled on the wall, come with us. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I just, like, there was, I think, it would have been earlier, I was talking about how there was a point where I was watching a few of these well, not so much right-wingers, but anti-SJWs, or anti-Sujus. Yep. And so, yeah, I think the first person that I got into was TJ Kirk, or he was...
Yep.
I think when I actually first started watching him, he was known as the Amazing Atheist, but then went into bashing the Jews because that was what made him money, you know. And then, you know, I also got onto Cult of Dusty, and he was also sort of starting to go into that. And you know, it is entertaining. I won't lie, it is entertaining to watch some people talk about these blue and red-haired college kids and saying, "Oh, look at how stupid they are. They don't realize that." They don't realize that they're not the victim and that they're wanting to be the victim.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I think I will give them some credit, though. I'll give Dusty some credit and TJ some credit. What they were doing back in the day is first they were fighting the status quo. They were fighting traditional Christian evangelical society, mostly in the United States, right? Because these were mostly Americans that were doing this. And they were pushing back against that structure. And that's, you know, at the same time, it's weird. Because right now what you have is you have YouTubers and then you have intellectuals, right?
Yeah.
So you have your Stefan Molyneux, you have your Sargon of Akkad's, you have your, you know, JFs, or, you know, the whole spectrum of whatever. You have the whole spectrum of like these reactionary right-wingers that are attacking feminism, SJWs, you know, postmodernism, all these things. But then you also have your intellectuals like Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, and it's funny because Sam switched camps because he was back back in the atheist days too. He's one of the four horsemen,
Yep.
and so I will give them credit. Like they were pushing back against a legitimate grievance, with the Christians. And then they kind of turned once that died down on YouTube, and it wasn't as I'm guessing wasn't as profitable anymore because they pushed all those people off the platform. All the Christians left, and I guess presumably went and started flat Earth videos, and
probably.
And then they turned their sights on, I think justifiably so, like extremely radical feminists, SJWs in the negative sense, right?
Yeah.
But then what happened was that got transformed into those are all liberals, and now those are all leftists, and now all leftists are communists. Now all communists are postmodern neo-Marxists, and it like went to this very toxic place where now they all kind of drifted to the right wing. And I think there's a lot of anti-SJWs that wouldn't call themselves right wing, but if they really stopped and looked, they're pretty far right at this point.
Yeah, I think when it comes to TJ, he has kind of reflected on it, and because I watched a video by him recently where he said that when it comes to these anti-SJWs, a lot of them are just like the SJWs that they're criticizing.
Yep.
Yeah, you got. I do remember a clip from I think it was Sargon who was going, "Fuck you, Bernie." I can't remember when this was, but
oh, I know he just does that. He'll just he'll have those rants where he's like, "Fuck you, fuck you," and I'm like, "Dude, what are you?" Like, chill.
Although one thing I have noticed, and this kind of gives me a bit of comfort, is that Sargon sounds like Sleeping Warrior. They both had that same kind of voice. Yeah, Sleeping Warrior.
Who's that?
Oh, he's a flat earther.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to look this up now.
Yeah, he's been on a few of my debates, so yeah. But he's one of these people that sounds like he knows what he's talking about, like I said before, but really doesn't.
That's a big problem. I have a little confession to make about Sargon. So people kept asking me when I came out of the pipeline. They're like, "So did you watch Sargon? Did you watch Sargon?" I kept getting this question. I was like, no, I didn't watch Sargon. I hated Sargon. Like, he just wasn't interesting to me or whatever. And then I went back through my YouTube history because you can download your Google YouTube history. And I went through it, and I got to a certain point, and I was shattered. Sargon was on there every single week, This Week in Stupid. I'd watched him every single week, but I had totally repressed it from my memory. Like, so I'm going to have to go to therapy to get that out of there. They're going to have to do like hypnosis, like exposure therapy, CBT. Like, they're just going to have to pull that brain worm out, maybe like slowly with a stick or something.
Yeah, I've only really watched a few Sargon videos because a friend of mine was going into. Someone was saying that a user named David Emery is having trouble with the chat box. Hold up, let me try and fix this for them.
Yeah, I'm gonna do something here real quick as well.
Yeah. Okay. Where was I going to go? Okay, community settings. Is David Emery? No, doesn't look like David Emery is on there. No. How about try reloading the page? Okay. Yeah. So Sargon got milkshake the day after he got pelted with raw fish. I think I heard something about it.
Yeah, I talked to a guy that was there. Yeah, I talked to somebody. I actually heard about it the day that it happened. Or it came out on video. There was someone I was talking to on Discord. He went there and he said that. Yeah, he said there was like. He said it was just like totally weird, like the whole event of like Sargon showing up to this like little English town and like giving a speech. He said the whole situation was just bizarre. And then, lo and behold, he got a milkshake to the face.
Okay. Yeah. Sometimes I don't hear about these things, but all I know is that Sargon's campaign trail is a dumpster fire.
Oof. Yep. I can't believe UKIP. I can't believe that they put him and Count Dankula up on that stage. What were they thinking? I don't know what they were thinking. It just shows you boomers, man. It must have just been a bunch of boomers in that meeting. Like, yeah, on YouTube, it's like, all right, you don't realize that everything Sargon touches turns to shit. So there goes your party. Even Nigel Farage was like, fuck this dumpster fire. I'm out. Like, he fucking rolled.
Yeah, when it comes to Count Dankula, like in the earlier days, I was thinking, yeah, he's making, he had that Nazi pug video, which was what essentially got him famous, and it's like, okay, I don't think that he should be charged for this, but they tried to charge him, and I would agree that he shouldn't have been charged for that, but. With what he's doing now, it's at the point where he's taken that thing and been like, I'm for free speech and all that, and it's like, well, this person, he's only famous because he would have. They were trying to charge him for the Nazi pug video, and he's really not an intellectual or anything like some of the other people that are. I don't think he makes any good arguments, at least not from what I've heard.
No, he's just a guy. He's just a normal dude. He made that Nazi pug video, and people thought it were funny, and it went viral. I actually heard that his pug came out recently and made a video, "My Descent into the Alt-Right Pipeline." Yeah, like the pug told all. It was a pretty sad story. It was pretty emotional and raw. But, yeah.
One thing that I just remembered is because from what I've heard, Destiny gave his thoughts on you.
Yeah, Destiny gave some thoughts on me at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I made my first video, and then made like an update video where I was like honestly pretty sleep deprived, and I kind of like am a little too honest sometimes. Like I speak off the cuff, and I said that I was staying up all night watching Destiny, and that I quit my job because I wanted to work on this full time, and people took that to interpret that I was like trolling for money, and that I just wanted to stay up all night and watch Destiny and get paid to do that. That's ridiculous. I mean, I don't. I guess people believe that, and then Destiny said on a little live stream, like an IRL stream, he was like, "Oh, he's like, I knew he was a troll. I knew it because someone told him I was a troll, and he's like, I knew it." But, I mean, I've spoken with Destiny since then. I've emailed back and forth with him. He's been very cordial and nice to me. He said, I don't think you're a troll. I'm just skeptical. I'm careful of these things. So I'm not upset with Steven.
Yeah. I do, and that's another point that I wanted to bring up. I do find it kind of funny. A lot of people would say ironic, but I don't think it's ironic. I think it's more of funny, more of a coincidence that you were sort of brought into the alt-right by Stefan, and you're brought out of the alt-right by Steven.
Yeah.
I honestly find that kind of funny.
I never thought about that. That's so funny. Steven was the first catalyst that got me out. If I hadn't watched Destiny's debate with Lauren Southern, I might still be in there, and I might have went deeper.
Yeah, I have recently been watching a lot of Destiny, and he makes some good points. It's one of the things where you sort of watch him, and you gotta think I find that often you've got to think for yourself as well when you're watching them, so that you can kind of keep up with what's being said. Like one of the debates where I thought that Destiny was going to lose, and so the thing that I thought was going to that he was going to lose was the debate with No Bullshit on incest.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
But it really turned out that No Bullshit didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, which isn't surprising.
Yeah, there's no bullshit. Yeah, that guy. once again, the right wing has a lot of like these dudes that just turn on a camera and just start ranting. And I try to be so conscious of that because I don't ever want to be that person. Like that just turns on the camera and spews out like whatever is coming out of my mouth. Like I try to do some research on the things I talk about. But yeah, no bullshit's definitely one of those people.
Yeah, I remember the first video that I watched from him, and he was so triggered. Like, I just couldn't really understand why he was so triggered. Okay, maybe he wants to believe that alpha males are a thing. That's fine. You can believe that. Just don't get triggered about it, dude.
Yeah, that's what's funny about them though is they talk about triggered everybody else gets, but really they're the ones that have like grievances, right? They're the ones that get totally aggrieved whenever something like goes outside of their little paradigm. I see it all the time. I see it in Discord debates. Just want to say, like, my dude Hans is there in the chat. What's up, Hans? Like I see it in Discord debates. Hans was doing a Discord debate just the other day on politics server. You ever go on politics server?
No, I haven't.
You know about it? Oh man, it's an interesting place. But they get triggered as fuck when you make like logical arguments and like make them follow the arguments, and they don't like it. Not that there aren't right wingers that can't debate well, that can't hold it together and make good points, but like with a lot of these alt-right types, at least they get very upset. I had a little back and forth with Molyneux, and he got like visibly triggered about what I was saying. It was just
really.
Well, I brought up white genocide, and he dodged the question.
Okay, yeah, that's
he's like, whoop, nope.
Oh yeah, Christmas made a good point. Look at the recent Ben Shapiro interview on BBC.
Oh, I haven't seen. Oh, Ben Shapiro. Yes, I did see that. Holy crap, man! He got so upset, and it was so funny because the guy said to him, he's like, "Well, I actually didn't know who you were until you came on today." And Ben's like, "Well, if you don't know who I am, then why am I here? Why would you have me on?" It's like, well, holy crap, man! And then the guy was like, he's like, "This is just a leftist takedown. This is very typical." And the guy was like, "If only you knew who I was." The guy was a fucking Tory, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I didn't know who the fuck you were until you came on today. I mean, I'm joking, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just, and that just kind of shows you where Ben's ego is at too. That he would get so offended that this man had not heard of him before. Like, Ben, you're like some dude on the internet. Like, chill.
Yeah, imagine if I got offended by people not knowing who I was. I'm only a guy with just under 4,000 subscribers. And
that's pretty good.
And Ben Shapiro, sure, he may be a bit more famous than that, but I haven't really watched much of him. All I know is that he will go and debate leftists, and he knows how to destroy them with facts and logic, and that has to be always capitalized.
Yeah. Oh God. I just love how him and Crowder show up, and the only people they actually debate are like fucking kids. Like, he literally is. He's like the guy that goes back to the high schools and like bullies the kids. Like, that's what he does. He like goes. Him and Crowder go to fucking college campus and bully kids. Like,
yeah, it's like,
how is no one like picking up on this?
Well, some people never grow up. I feel like we should actually feel bad for people like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro, because of the fact that I feel like they probably got bullied back in high school a lot, and so this is their way of sort of going back and getting revenge,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's pretty accurate.
I could be wrong about that. But
But if that's the case, it's sad when you think about it. It's sad that a lot of people, they fall into the shit of this like very toxic reactionary, identities and ideologies because they're like broken inside. That's a really sad thing. I mean, that's a big part of my platform. What I'm trying to do is like show people some compassion and like give them a space to just fucking open up for once in their life. Because that's what I realized when I stopped like holding on, like everything so close to my chest, and just like let go a little bit. Life got so much easier. It got so much better. It's still hard. You got to fucking think more, and you got to like figure things out in a much more difficult way. But you don't feel so emotionally caught up with everything whenever you stop like identifying with all that pain.
Mark Dion says, the reason you have 22 viewers is that you are two idiots agreeing with each other that are more successful than you must be dumped. You have zero arguments. I mean,
Hey.
What?
No, go ahead.
That's what he said. I didn't. What would you say about that?
I don't know. We kind of are having a little conversation about dunking on conservatives. But anyway, I just want to say, hey, don't you come on my comment section and shit on me all the time? I'm pretty sure that's you. What's up, man? But
yeah, like when it comes to arguments, there are actually good arguments from the left, and I mean, this is more of a discussion rather than me trying to I'm not trying to destroy you in any way.
No, I wouldn't worry about Mark too much. Mark seems angry. Mark, hit me up on Discord. We'll talk sometime. You can debate me with facts and logic.
Yeah, but like, I actually do want to bring up something like, because one thing that I figured out before this anti-SJW thing was the whole gender pay gap, right? I figured out that really the gender pay gap doesn't exist. And then what happened was I actually recently heard some good points made about it.
The gender pay gap, I only know what was put into my head back when I was on the right wing days. So I'd have to hear like what you've got.
Okay, so take, for example, a nurse and a doctor. They make a different amount of money even though they do practically the same jobs. So why why does a doctor get paid more than a nurse, even if they're working the same doing the same sort of jobs and stuff? And it's really that more males are more likely to go into being doctors, and more females are likely to go into being nurses. And so there may be... I will often say that I don't think that people are being inherently sexist when they... or they're being consciously sexist when they pay women less, or pay jobs that women tend to go into less. I just think that it's something that they might do unconsciously or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that whenever they, gender pay gap, that's part of what they're critiquing. They're critiquing the idea that women choose to be nurses. Now, you could say that, women are more naturally like empathetic and compassionate and want to care for people. Maybe that's the case. But, there's also the case that women are kind of like socially conditioned to want to go into roles like that. And and as you see society start to normalize and equalize more for women, you're starting to see that they actually are taking up more academic roles. There's a lot of more women that are becoming doctors. There's more women that are even going into the STEM fields, like the more like the technology fields, like coding or engineering. So it's hard to say at this point in time how much of it is biological determinism and how much of it is like a social construction. We're just going to have to keep equalizing things to figure that out. In terms of like the actual pay, it's possible there is some discrimination, and I think the people that criticize the gender pay gap, they do bring up like criticism that there's inherent bias in hiring and then giving raises. There's also the from what I've understood, women are less likely to negotiate for a raise, and we could say, well, is that biological determinism or is that social construction? Well, we should probably try to teach women how to negotiate more, how to assert themselves more, and to like kind of normalize that in situations to where men don't feel intimidated when a woman asserts herself. Yeah. So it's hard to say, like, this is what the problem I have with the right wing is they're like, no, it's this way. Women just are this way and men just are this way. And that's why the system is this way. And it's like, well, maybe we should like be a little bit more skeptical
Yeah.
to all of this. Maybe a little bit postmodern.
I mean, isn't the whole point of the skeptic community to be skeptical about things?
I guess I think they're they've kind of given up on the skepticism. So in that regards.
But yeah, there was one point that you brought up because from my viewpoint, I think that if a woman walks in with a better degree than a male, you should probably hire the woman from a business standpoint. But then also from a business standpoint, I can see why if a male and a female walk in with the exact same qualifications, why they might want to hire the male over the female. And I completely understand that from a business standpoint, and that's why I think that there's sort of rather than saying to businesses, oh, you've got to have 50% male and 50% female. Rather than that, try and work out a way in which we can make it so that businesses don't have to worry about who they employ. So remove social things that make it this way. So, for example, when it comes to hiring a male over a female, one of the reasons might be is that males generally don't get periods, right? This is a biological fact. Although you don't want to go around, although some females, they don't get very heavy periods. And I'm not going to ask a female, look, do you get a heavy period when I hire her? That would, at that point, they probably wouldn't want to be employed. And
yeah, so I mean, go ahead.
And there's also birth control, so that can reduce periods. And you don't want to say to a female, oh, if you've got a heavy period, you have to be on birth control so we can keep you coming in 40 hours a week.
Yeah, I mean, I could see if you're going to make some kind of utilitarian argument for that. I would kind of go back to, well, is that all we're caring about now? Is just raw productivity and looking at things from this cold, calculated utilitarian view. Now we get into a discussion of what are our values. And then also, if you say that's true, just assume that that's true, which I don't know if having a period necessarily is going to affect your job. I mean, I know there's women that run companies at highly successful competitive companies. And if her period was a determining factor in her output, then wouldn't those companies suffer? Wouldn't there be a noticeable trend with her, menstruation, in terms of the economic productivity of that company and of her output? And I'm not seeing that. And if that was true, then the right wing would have done studies on that and pumped those studies out. And they don't have those studies. So it's probably not a thing. But, even going back to, if that were true, assume that were true, if you get more women into the workforce and it just becomes more equalized, then that's just going to, level everything out anyway. That will become the output of it, right? If that makes any sense at all. But I don't think that it's something that they should determine on hiring.
Mark Dion just donated to, I don't know what the hell CHF is, but he donated that for bashing women on inferior biology. I'm not saying that they've got inferior biology. All I'm saying is that if, when hiring a woman, that's something that companies may take into account. If there's two people that are exactly the same, they might say, okay, we want the male because males don't get periods, males can't get pregnant. But then there are issues with. I think that it's more an issue with society, how we expect people to work 40 hours a week, rather than with the woman for having a period. Because if we drop it down to something. If we automated a lot of jobs and then dropped the work hours down to something like, let's just say 15 hours a week, that would be something where we could hire a lot more people, and people would be able to be more flexible. If a woman can't work because of her period for a week, just don't have her in on those weeks. and I fully support having less working hours for everyone. It would benefit males, it would benefit females, and I think that's probably the best way to go about it. What do you think?
I agree 100%. I mean, it's unbearable. Like, if you've ever worked like a very working class job, and there's probably gonna be a lot of people like, well, you just need to suck it up. Like, look at people in the past; they had to just push through things. Okay, fair enough. But look, we are getting to a point where we're starting to automate things where it's not necessary that we're working 40 hours a week and then still coming home broke. And just forget about the broke part. Just even if you are making a lot of money, there's no reason that we should be working like at the rates that we are. And it's all because of competition under capitalism, right? If people stopped caring about the bottom line and the almighty dollar so much, then we would be able to chill back more. We would be able to take more holidays. We could all take we could have a week off,
Yeah.
Like sure, you'd have to keep grocery stores open. You'd have to keep certain services open, but like you would have more flexibility in your fucking life. But because of competition, you're constantly pushed to produce. And if you choose to be that capitalist that is like, oh, hey, I'm going to like be nicer to my employees and kind of just like give them a week off, you're going to lose. And then your business is going to fail. Your life is going to fall apart. And then you're not going to have a company anymore. So competition under capitalism is a big problem. That is a big reason that you have all these like toxic work cultures of people working like 40, 60, 80 hours a week. I mean, you get into like the higher up fields like doctors and lawyers and Wall Street executives, and they work ungodly hours, and it's because they're competing with everybody else. It's not good for people's mental health, and you see it playing itself out in society.
Yeah, I remember when I was working a factory job, right? And this was 40 hours a week, and by God, it was just so crushing. I worked a total of four weeks. It was temporary work, so and it was just so crushing. And so I actually so I did two weeks for the first time, and this is during the school holidays. And I don't know. I honestly, thinking back, I don't know why I went back. Probably to get a bit more money, and but yeah. So for the first 2 weeks. The second week was the worst because it was one of them things where I actually had the alarm clock set to the morning. My phone had reset itself, and I was glad when I realized that it's not actually 5 a.m. yet. It's 2 a.m. It's like a few more hours sleep. If I had to get up then, I would have been so... I can't even words for it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's soul crushing because there's this constant like you have to go. If you don't go, then you're gonna be broke, and if you're broke, you're gonna lose your apartment. You lose your apartment, you're gonna be homeless. Then you're not gonna feed yourself. Then you're gonna lose your health insurance. You're gonna get sick. It's like this constant stress. I worked that job for years, and people work those jobs for decades, and you get what? Your little 2-week vacation, right? Your little 2-week vacation. And it's ridiculous. It's absolutely soul crushing, and it produces just a bunch of anxiety. You don't have the luxury of just saying, "Man, I really just need a fucking day off today."
Yeah,
like I just need it, And you can't take it because you're out of days. You got too many occurrences on yourself, and if you don't go, you're going to get fired, and then you're fucked.
Yeah.
So it's not good for people's mental health. I don't see how that's better for society. I mean, I can buy a flat screen TV for $300, but fuck that flat screen TV, right? Like,
when it comes down to it, my camera just went out of focus. But when it comes down to it, I find that it's often down to business and corporate interests. So it's like if I was setting up a corporation, the way that I'd want to do it is, ideally I'd want people working 12-hour shifts, right? And, that would be considered cruel in a way. So, I can't do that. So then you'd go, okay, how can I produce the most amount of output? And I've actually worked out a business model that would get people, which would provide a lot of output in a short amount of time, right? And this is using that scary globalism that people like Alex Jones hate. So what you'd do is you'd set up three studios in 3 areas of the world, right? So Studio 1 would be in something like America. Studio 2 would be in a place like Europe. And Studio 3 would be in a place like Australia. And so what you do is when you have them go to fixed hours, so when someone goes into Studio 1 and leaves off, then I think I said Studio 1 was in America, right?
Yep.
So when someone signs off from Studio 1, their work would be transferred to Studio 3, and when they sign off, their work would be transferred to Studio 2, and when they sign off, their work would be transferred back to Studio 1. That would be very efficient. I probably shouldn't mention this because someone's probably going to take my idea and run a successful company out of it, maybe. But
yeah,
that would be one of the most efficient ways to work, in my view. And that requires that people work 8-hour days, or you can even go down to 7-hour 7-hour days. Oh, Mark Dion says that's already been invented. It's called Follow the Sun. It's usually used for customer support. Okay, yeah, I can actually see that.
I mean, it would just be nice if you didn't have everybody competing with each other.
Yeah.
And instead, all the businesses work together and we all just work together to produce the things that we need. And then you could just do that naturally, take a break. All right, factory B, you can pick up the slack here while factory A takes a fucking break because they look like they're about to pull their hair out and their kids need to go to the doctor and they need to go down to the DMV to get their tags changed and they haven't had time to do that because they're dead fucking tired when they get off work. It's what kind of society are we pushing ourselves towards? It's not a positive one.
Yeah.
And it's not even one that you would have experienced back in the day. I mean, back in the day, the work that you did, you had more of an attachment to. It's just after industrialization, it seems. And now with the way capitalism is so fast paced now that it just demands that you turn yourself into a robot.
I don't get, quite often I'll see someone who's so into their work, right? And it'll be something which I myself would hate. So take for example, if you're working a job as a labourer, I wouldn't like labouring. I'm not built for labouring. I'm more of a computer guy, so I'd rather do that. And people are saying, "Oh, you need to get into labouring. You need to get into labouring." Why? It's not my strong suit. Wouldn't it be better for society if I went into something which I actually excel at, like computer programming?
Yeah. Putting people where they're most suited is probably the best thing as well.
Yeah,
100%.
But then you've also got, and someone brought this up, you've got a lot of people with college degrees, and because you've got so many people with college degrees, there's apparently not enough people in trade. Now I don't know how many trade jobs can be automated, but it could be that if trade jobs get more automated, then the college degrees might be a bit more useful because that's where all the jobs would be at. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of trade jobs you can't automate, but until they build some robot, ambidextrous robot, we're going to have a lot of manual labor for a long time. Yeah.
Although, I think manual labor, and as much as I like to criticize, well, I don't really criticize it on YouTube, but I do have criticisms of toxic masculinity, but I think when it comes to labor jobs and all that, that might be where toxic masculinity could be useful, but it's...
Oh yeah, so I had a discussion with someone. We talked about this, how when you're in those types of jobs, you have to shut your down. You can't be over here thinking about this and over there thinking about that. You can't be in tune with your emotions. No, you're laying concrete. You're laying brick to build a wall, and you've got to shut yourself down and focus on task and pump it out. You don't have time for any of that other stuff. And I think one of the ways that that does reproduce itself is through toxic masculinity, and it becomes a useful tool in that setting. Like, I can't imagine going into the warehouse that I work and talking to those men about toxic masculinity. I just can't imagine doing that, because it's their job. It just they're even the women that you encounter in those types of jobs, you could say that they exhibit traits of toxic masculinity, and I really do think it is because of the way what the job demands.
Yeah,
it's hard work and it requires extreme toughness. And I think at the end of the day, that's what toxic masculinity is. It's giving yourself a tough outer shell to protect you from the world. And I think that people should go home and take that shell off and set it aside.
Yeah.
And be vulnerable with their kids and with their family. But it's hard for people to do that. It's hard to turn that off. And so, yeah, I think there is a correlation between things like manual labor jobs, even things like if you're a police officer or a firefighter, a lot of these types of jobs, I think that toxic masculinity becomes like this exoskeleton that helps you become more productive.
Yeah, Shill for Science just did extreme toughness.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And
you have like a lot of skeptic atheist types on is that like a lot of your core audience? I'm noticing like Shill for Science and like a lot of other like skeptic memes.
Yeah, like,
actual skeptics, not the skeptics. Yeah.
Yeah. You got MCToon who MCToon Charisma shows up on a lot of people like Godless Engineers channel and all that kind of stuff, but I don't actually know when it comes down to names. I've just scrolled through them and I can't see a lot of names that are related to skepticism, but I do notice that a lot of these people are in my audience, so just scroll back down so I can.
Well, is there anything else you wanted to ask me about before we close up here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, Charisma just said I'm a libertarian socialist and also a true skeptic.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Charisma.
Yeah, but I was going to continue a bit with the point that you're making just before when it comes to people. I find that a lot of people find it hard to sort of distance themselves from either their job or from what they do. You could have maybe YouTubers that find it hard to be a YouTuber, but then when they turn the camera off, be a different person or be themselves. Do you ever?
I'm pretty much myself on camera because of the way that I came to this, cultivated a personality per se, and I'm glad. And I was actually I've been told that by people before. When you do YouTube, don't cultivate a personality, just be yourself. And so I'm glad that I didn't do that. So for me, when I turn off camera, I'm pretty much the same person.
Yeah.
But I mean, definitely, I've experienced not being able to shut off my job. When I worked that manual labor job, I would go home and I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, I stress thinking about what's going on at work. And I'm like, why am I thinking about this? I'm not even like the boss. Like, I shouldn't be thinking about this right now. But it's hard to disconnect yourself whenever you have a job that's stressful. For this, I do find it hard to not to shut off. I do think about the project I'm doing a lot, which I'd like to talk about the project a little bit here at the end. But with the project that I'm doing, I do find it hard to shut that off. I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm constantly thinking about what to do next, how to solve the problems that we're facing. It hasn't gotten to me yet. I'm still new to this. I've only been doing this for about a month, but I can imagine that after a while, it's going to wear down on me, and I'm going to have to find ways to disconnect.
Yeah.
Think about starting a garden, actually. I used to come to the computer and polish stress, and now I find myself wanting to kind of go back outside again.
Yeah, I actually do find that the more you, or at least it's true for me, the more I do computer work and the more I, because my job basically now is computer work, the more I do that kind of stuff, the more I kind of think it's nice to go outside and enjoy the sun, or it's nice to go and go to the gym and do physical work, because I think naturally we kind of crave having the physical exercise, even though we are as a species quite lazy. And so I think that it is balanced by that kind of craving to get physical exercise. But I'm trying to get my hair to go.
No worries. I used to have long ass bangs. I'm so glad you're not that. Because I used to have like the whole hair in your face problem. I agree with you. It's you got to take care of your health. Sitting's like so bad for your health. It's horrible for your shoulder and your spine. I'm standing right now because I don't have a studio set up, but it's actually kind of nice.
Yeah, I want to kind of be able to make some videos where I'm standing up, and currently with the camera, it's not really suited in a good way.
No,
so
you just got to get it set up. I seem smart. It's sad I had a bad job experience. I'm not dissing. If you're talking to me, I'm not dissing on manual labor jobs. There's a lot of manual labor jobs that are very respectable work. I worked in a furniture factory, and that we packaged furniture and we made furniture, and like they made some beautiful pieces in there. There's even people that have to go down and clean out the fucking subway or the sewer system and maintain that. Go watch Dirty Jobs with was it Mike Rowe? There's honor to that work. I'm not dissing on that work, but I did have a bad experience, and there are negative aspects to it. But there's negative aspects to creative work as well. Yeah. What I'm finding out with this is like it's stressful to kind of come up with ideas. It's stressful to have the constant thing that's like trying to drive you forward to put out content and to produce. That's a whole nother issue of itself. Just part of being human. Any work you do we're never going to have a utopia where we all just like enjoy our jobs.
Yeah. Like the past week for me, right, has been one of the most stressful weeks on YouTube. And that's because because where I live, we've had quite a bit of rain and wind and all that kind of stuff. And I've been wanting to record a specific thing, and I can't record it if it's windy because I need it to have good sound quality. And if it's dark outside, that affects the lighting, so I need good lighting for it. And I do have a lamp up there, but the problem with that lamp is that I can't move it around the house, and it's going to be moved around, and it needed to be moved around the house for it to be able to work. But yeah, eventually I got it done, and I think that's with every job. It's trying to work out how to get it done.
Yeah. 100%.
If you've got a job, like a lot of people will have, a lot of people might have a construction job where they need to construct a house, and if you're constructing a house, there's certain stages, and there may be a stage that you absolutely hate. But I do find that there is a bit of reward, and that might be why people like these general labouring jobs, is because the payoff is worth it, because it's like, I'm finally done with that part of the project, onto the next part of the project. And for me, I do like projects because, there is that kind of payoff, and especially when the project does well. If you're working on a video game or something, and you release the video game and people like the video game, there's always that payoff. For example, third year in my Bachelor of IT, I had to create a website. I'm not going to say what the website is, but don't worry, it's nothing dodgy. But the reason why I enjoyed that was because there was certain hurdles to get over, and when you got over these certain hurdles, it became a lot. You saw that you made progress. One of the big hurdles was getting the mapping system working, and it was all right to start off with. I kind of got it working, but then I realized that there was a whole lot of things with polylines that I had to work out how to store them in the database, and I didn't know how to interpret or how to draw them. Then I realized, Google does that for me. And so Mark Dion just asked, why would you think socialism would be better? You have to force other people to pay for strangers. It will never work.
Well, I'm not a socialist, Mark. The why of socialism, like why should we be socialists? It makes sense to me. Don't really know how we're going to get there or how that system would actually look. I don't think that most socialists even know that. That's why there's so much deliberation and argument over it. but I'm not a socialist. I just want reform capitalism. And reform capitalism does work. I mean, you go to Europe and it works. So I'd just like to see more. I like syndicalism a lot. I'd just like to see more power in the hands of the workers.
Yeah.
But I also like technocracy. So if we could set up some technocratic society where the robots do most of the work and we kind of, delegate tasks out to people, I'd like that too. Also, Chrismer said, I've worked as a line cook as well as a custodian and had a job in a canning factory operating heavy machinery. All of them suck. Those are the worst jobs because, like you were saying with projects, it's nice to have a project where you complete it. You even get this in construction. Like when you do construction work, you put up a wall or you build out a deck or you put up a house. And at the end, it's done. And you're like, oh, nice. That's awesome. You get a gratification and then you move on to the next thing. When you're working the jobs, like she's saying, it's just constant output. And there's never a point where you finish a project and it looks done.
Yeah. And that's
kind of graining on you.
And that's kind of why I'd like those jobs to be taken over by robots, Yeah,
as much as we can. So can I talk a little bit about the project?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so what we're doing is I put out the YouTube channel. I never expected that video to do what it did, but I went to Twitter, networked with a lot of people, and they signal boosted the shit out of it. And so now I have a platform with over 17,000 subscribers. We're struggling to get funding for it. Right now, the Patreon's only about $160 a month. And so trying to get funding for the project so that I can do this full time has been difficult. But mostly what we're doing is we have the YouTube channel where I'm coming on and talking about different topics that I think are important, explaining the alt-right. I'm going to get more into that, deconstructing their arguments. I'm going to get more into that. I also want to promote mental health and kind of talk about life experiences that are relevant to people. So we have the YouTube channel, but then the main part of the project that we have right now is the Discord channel. And you've been in there before, and you've seen some of what's going on in there. And we have a lot of people in there that are helping people with their issues, with mental health support, not any sort of professional capacity, but just talking to people, giving people a support system to come to, helping de-radicalize people that are coming in, right-wingers, or anyone that's in a radical form of politics that wants to come in and kind of see the other side and talk with people and de-radicalize themselves. That's the main focus of what we're doing is de-radicalization. But there's also I don't want to call it mental health support because we're not professionals, but like emotional support systems, building those, and then giving people like a fun community to come to and relax at the end of the day. Those are our main projects. I want to do more stuff out like IRL, but really what we're doing is trying to reach people online because there's already organizations like Life After Hate with Christian Piccolini, which if anybody doesn't know Christian Piccolini, you should definitely go check him out. But he does a lot of work. He was an ex-neo-Nazi. He does a lot of work out IRL in real life, helping de-radicalize people. And he does that by going to gun shows, going to places where, neo-fascists and neo-Nazis hang out and kind of helping bring them out. And what he talks about is people have potholes. And the reason that they fall into these things is because there's potholes in their life. Things have gone wrong. And what radical movements do, radical ideologies or religions or whatever, what they do is they fill in those potholes, but they do it in a way where you're beholden to them. And they either get money out of you, they get loyal support out of you, political support out of you. What Christian does and what I want to do is I want to help fill those potholes in with just love and compassion and community. And then people don't feel like they have to drift into radical ideologies to like structure their life or solve problems in their life. So that's a lot of what we're doing. So that's a huge part of it. And so the Discord server, we want to promote that as much as possible and just give people a place to come and feel accepted.
Yeah. One thing that I did want to actually say about that is when it comes, I can actually see how joining a radical movement may, in fact, sort of make someone feel like they have a purpose, because there's been times in my life where I have been so stressed and I've actually been worried about what the outcome of a particular thing that I'm doing will be. even just last year, I was worried about failing a course that I was doing. Fortunately, I didn't. I passed. That was good. But I was worried about it because it was a very real possibility because of the amount of work I had to do for this course was tremendous. And so, you do get worried by these things, and being able to just say, fuck it, I'm going to overthrow the system and start a revolution, that sounds like... And quite often you don't actually do that because, you really don't need to.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't want to start some, dramatic. There are things that we do need to make dramatic moves on. Climate change is one of those things. But for most things, I think that things can be done slowly, and it's better when things are done slowly. So that's kind of the solutions I look to. But when I was in a worse off place in my life, I looked at things like I wanted dramatic changes. I wanted things to happen drastically. That's why I voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I thought we need an action right now. And anytime you make urgent, rash decisions in life, it always blows up in your face. Almost always blows up in your face. And so I want to give people an outlet so they feel like they don't have to do that. And you're right, feeling like you're trapped is where a lot of that comes from.
Yeah. Because, although when it comes to Donald Trump, one of the things that I don't like about him is that he has deregulated a lot of the climate change stuff.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate.
But I don't... As much as I like Elon Musk, I'd rather it sort of be one of these things where we're not just asking Mr. Stark, okay, come on, Mr. Stark, how do we fix climate change? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe Musk. I don't know. We'll see what happens with the climate change. I hope that we find a solution to it because it's going to be a big issue.
Yeah.
So anything else, man? You want to ask me before I go? I want any questions the chat wants to ask.
Yeah, we'll have 10 minutes. Shill for Science asks, if you ever felt like we needed change, why would you consider Trump?
I can't explain that in a minute. And I felt that right-wing politics was the solution to our problems. I felt like the conservatives and the Republicans were not pure examples of that. I felt like Trump was a more pure example of what I saw as right-wing politics and what I saw as solutions to the country. And I thought that he did that in a big way. I thought he was anti-establishment. I thought he was pro-capitalism. I thought that he cared about the working class. Those are the main points.
Yeah. And I think Charisma said it well. Donald Trump spoke populism, but then went with the established. I can't stand the man, but I can see why people voted for him, and I'd actually agree. Opinion on Soph.
Yeah, I do have an opinion on Soph very generally. I think that BuzzFeed shouldn't have written that article, and I think that the people surrounding her, these right-wingers that are surrounding her, need to leave her alone. And I think that she's doing irreparable harm to her future life. I'm going to put out a video, try to film a video today. I think I've lost the light for the day, but if I can, I'll put a video out on that, and you should come to my channel, Mark, and check it out. And you can hear my full opinion on Soph.
I don't even know what Soph is.
Soph is Lieutenant Corbett. She's the 14-year-old that's kind of blowing up on social media and YouTube right now for saying inflammatory statements about Islamic and Muslim people.
Okay. And one person.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're about to say.
Yeah. How could you think that he actually cared? I don't know, man. It was the populist rhetoric that he spoke. It was the way he branded himself. It was probably wishful thinking on my part, and so from a person looking from the outside, that was really dumb. You must be a dumb person. Smart people join cults. Smart people do all sorts of dumb things. Not to sit here and say how smart I am, but I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I was in a place where that was the lens that I was viewing the world through, and so that's what I went with.
And then Charisma asked, so what's your real thoughts on Candace Owens? I don't...
Candace Owens, you know who that is?
I hear the name a lot, but I don't really know who it is.
She is a black conservative who has said very inflammatory things about the black community. She is like very pro Republican Party, very pro conservative, gives a lot of those sorts of arguments. What is my thoughts on her? Opportunistic grifter / shill. So
Okay.
I think she's just doing it for the money.
Yeah.
And yeah, don't worry, Silver Science. I'm not offended at all, man. Just wanted, just wanted to get my thoughts on it. I'm not offended at all. Don't worry.
Well, I often myself, I will do things which I'll later go and go, shit, I was fucking stupid back then.
Yeah.
You know, when I thought back in the Charlottesville, because I listened to Sargon rant on about it, and I was like, oh yeah, he makes a good point. It wasn't the fault of any particular, it wasn't the sole fault of the Nazis, but then I realized that, well, it was probably more on these people that are shouting, they will not replace us, than it was of the people that didn't like these people shouting, they will not replace us. And so I'm more with Antifa. I don't like Antifa, but I'm more with Antifa than I would be with the Nazis.
Yeah, I could see that. Charlottesville was a scary event. It shook me too. It definitely shook me too from where I was at.
Yeah, because you would have still been in the alt-right when Charlottesville happened.
Yeah,
right?
I would have been definitely on that side of politics for sure. But they played their hand so much. I was like, it didn't make sense to me because I never thought of myself as like a Nazi. I didn't watch Murdoch. I didn't like go into those like circles, and so like seeing that was very raw for me.
Oh yeah, one of the things I do need to ask you, because you mentioned one time that you kind of know where the conspiracies come from, where a lot of
the conspiracies that the alt-right believes in.
Yeah.
Oh, so a lot of their conspiracies come from like old books or old texts, like the Great Replacement, the mass immigration, white genocide theory. That comes from like a fictional book, like in the 1800s or 1900s. There's a lot of stuff that comes from the Turner Diaries that these people believe in, kind of the neo-fascist movements, neo-Nazi movements. It comes from the Turner Diaries, which was a racist, white supremacist fictional book that was written. But if you trace back some of the more core theories, like cultural Marxism, or like the race and IQ genetic arguments about biological determinism, you take cultural Marxism, for example. Cultural Marxism comes from the term cultural Bolshevism. And cultural Bolshevism was basically the end stage conspiracy theory that the Nazis, that Hitler and his cabal had come up with about how the Jews rule the world. And so first it started out as Jews rule the world, they're subverting society. And then later on through his administration, they crafted the theory into they were Bolsheviks, they were communists. And so now you had cultural. And now it's like they're influencing society through the institutions. They're influencing our society through media, through banking. And so now it's like the cultural Bolshevists. So the Jewish conspiracy that Jews rule the world turned into cultural Bolshevism. Well, was cultural Bolshevism. And then that got rebranded into cultural Marxism, which then got pushed by Pat Buchanan in the United States, a paleoconservative. And then it like made its way into the conservative movement. And then now, it got picked up by people like Jordan Peterson, Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, a lot of alt-right figures. And so it's a Nazi conspiracy theory. And it's the same with biological determinism, what they call race realism.
Yeah.
It's just a rebranded Nazi conspiracy theory. And that's what white supremacy constantly has to do, is it has to rebrand itself throughout time, because as society becomes more liberal, you need to convince gullible centrists like me to become a Nazi, because we're not gonna go with you if you walk up to us as a skinhead and say, Zeke Heil, do you want to talk about the white race? No, I don't want to talk about the white race. But if you can drip it into my head through like, oh, it's about free speech, It's about, individualism. It's about freedom. It's about all, anti-authoritarianism. If you can like rebrand and repackage and confuse and throw up smoke and mirrors, people will go along with it.
Yeah, and yeah, because one of the things that I used to think, and I used to think that it was the leftists that were very conspiratorial minded. But then as I've been talking to you, I've realized that it's actually you got a lot of right wingers that are very conspiratorial minded. And don't get me wrong, there are some people on the left that are very conspiratorial minded, thinking that that the Illuminati is propping up capitalism and it's all run by the elite. And there is a bit of truth. Like a lot of what we experience nowadays is run by the elite, but I don't think that it's a secret society that that's trying to do all this.
No, it's just people with their own special interests. Small groups of people competing with each other, and it's more of a system thing. It's more of a systemic thing, organically mostly, than it is like some kind of top-down conspiracy. Mark Dion, you should reach out to me. If you go and click on my Twitter, I'm sure he'll plug my Twitter here.
Yeah.
You'll find my Discord channel, Mark. You should come join the Discord channel, and we should talk sometime. Because I think there's a lot of information you'd like to hear about some of the things you just said there.
Because he did say that the replacement is real. You will be a minority in 2042 by your New Times article.
Yeah, so I'll read that article, but there's people go back and forth on that, whether whites will be. Because what you could be doing is you're looking at replacement rates right now for, quote, non-white people into like Western countries. And so what could be happening is you're looking at the rates today, and then you're projecting those rates out in the future. It's the same thing they do with like overpopulation. So they say, by 2050, the world's going to be overpopulated and we're not going to be able to sustain people. But what you're doing is you're looking at birth rates as they are today, and you're like trying to take that stat and project it out in the future. When in reality, as Africa industrializes, as China actually had the one-child rule, so they don't have this issue. But as other more developing countries industrialize and develop more, their birth rates are actually going to go down. And so the world's not going to become overpopulated. But if you were to just look at the raw numbers today of birth rates and project it out 50 years from now, then yeah, the world would be overpopulated. So there's that way of looking at it. There's a good video you should check out by Sean on YouTube. S-E-A-N. Or no, that's not how you spell his name.
No, it's S-H-A-U-N.
Yeah. Yeah, A-U-N. S-H-A-U-N. Go check out Sean. Type in Sean, Great Replacement. He does a couple good videos on that. And then even if it does end up true that whites get replaced, you have to argue about why that's a bad thing. And so that goes into a whole other slew of arguments that we can talk about. But you come to the Discord channel and chat with us. Just don't come in and trolling. Just come in good faith. We don't want to ban anybody for just being a dick. So just come in and talk with us, and we can have a discussion. We don't really do a whole lot of debate, but we can have a discussion about it.
One thing I did want to bring up, and I'm slowly losing my train of thought, because you brought up the whole thing about why would it be a bad thing. And one thing that would actually help with I find it really weird, because it would be the one thing that would actually stop the whole great replacement if it was a thing, right? And that would be healthcare. Having healthcare available to everyone would actually lower the birth rates of people coming into these countries with things like universal healthcare. And it's really odd how a lot of conservatives say, universal healthcare will be the doom of America.
Yeah. Well, it's silly anyway, because once people come in, the people that come in, the first generation, they do have a lot of kids. But once you get into second, third generation, people stop having 6, 7, 8 kids in Western countries, because it's not sustainable to have that many children in a Western country. It's just not sustainable. You can't afford it. You can't afford to put them all through school. You can't afford to feed them. You do that in developing countries because children are more valuable. Your children, there's more likely to die of disease or injury. And so you kind of have to have a lot of kids. It was the same thing in, quote, white countries when they were developing. They would have lots and lots of children. So unless you are very well off financially, it's difficult to have a lot of kids. And typically people choose not to have a lot of kids if they aren't well off financially. And a lot of immigrants that come in usually aren't well off financially. So by second generation, it kind of, that if you're even worried about birth rates, the problem clears itself up, from what I can tell.
And one of the things that I heard recently, I was watching the debate with Destiny and Lauren Southern. The richer people tend to have, a richer family might only have 2 kids, whereas a poorer family might have 4, 5, 6 kids. And so it is definitely due. You've got this sort of wealth inequality that does create more kids. So having a society which has less kids, obviously you don't want to go full on dropping to the point where the population gets way too old for its own good, and then there's not enough people to support these older people. But at the same time, you want to stop people from having too many kids, because if you have too many kids, then you'll eventually get that older population when people stop having as much kids. Yeah,
definitely. So, it's tied to poverty a lot too. I had a great time talking, man. We should sometime soon. You should come hang out in the Discord. If anybody in here, go check out the link to the Discord. Come hang out. We got a great group of people there. We'd love to have you guys. Chrismer, come check out the Discord. We should chat. It was nice meeting you.
I actually met him through Cult of Dusty's Discord.
Cool. Yeah, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah, I actually want to see you on Dusty's podcast sometime.
I think Dusty, we talked on Twitter. I think he is going to have me on.
Yeah, I'll also plug.
I really like the podcast he's doing. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about kind of jacking his style a little bit for some of my streams, because he just got this nice format. So I really enjoy it.
I also like his format. I'm trying to work on my format, because I do realize that sometimes I say and a lot, and sometimes I'll notice it when watching a stream back, and I just go, God damn, I've got to stop saying and And hopefully when I get that, I'll be able to basically lost my train of thought, but I'll basically be able to make things run a lot smoother. And just post your link in the chat there. All right.
Thank you.
So it was nice having you on. Make sure everyone go check out Faraday's channel. He has a good channel. And anyway, I'll just go to the... Anyway, leave a like and subscribe if you like that stream. Leave a comment letting me know who you'd like to get on. I actually need to work out something, not for this week, but I've got a few ideas of people that I could get on. So not next week, but the week after, I'm going to need someone else on. I do have a few ideas, but things have been, scheduling's kind of changed up a little bit, so I'll need to work out all that. But yeah, anyway, there's a link to my Discord in the description if you want to join my snazzy Discord. And yeah, anyway, I'll see you in the next stream. Between you and me, thank you for watching. There we go. Kind of butchered that at the start, didn't I? I should talk to JF. Oh, okay. Or was he saying that to Faraday? Anyway, alright, ending the stream now. Can all go continue on with your day.